Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're carving a pumpkin. Well, while it may not seem like rocket science to about 99.9% of you out there, there are many different ways and techniques to carve a pumpkin. Everybody has their own routine. Everybody does it their own way. So in continuing with our Halloween series, I thought that I would show you guys the method that I like to use for carving a pumpkin. Well, it all starts off with getting over to the bench and scooping out your pumpkin. I have a piece of 5/8 inch diameter dowel here. It doesn't have to be 5/8. You could use 3/4, whatever, as long as you have enough room to mark the center. And in that center, we're going to drill a 1/8 inch diameter hole, probably about 1.5 inches, maybe even a little more deep. The entire length of our dowel here is about 6.5 inches. And what I have is an old scroll saw blade. It's a pinned blade. And I'm using a pinned blade because they're a little thicker. So the first thing I'm going to do is use a pair of lineman pliers here, and we're just going to nip off these pinned ends. There we go, just like that. So now what I want to do is drill our 1/8 inch hole in the end, and we're going to place our blade inside of that hole and secure it with either 5-minute epoxy or CA glue or anything that will hold it. Also, I am making it so that the blade teeth are situated in such a way so that it's cutting on the thrust, not on the pull. I want it to be cutting as I'm pushing into the pumpkin. Well, in order to get at the insides, we need to cut a hole. And traditionally, people cut the top off. I don't really like to do that. What I like to do is cut the back out. A couple reasons for this. One is that I like to light these with an electrical socket, so it gives me a place to put the cord, hence this little circle drawn out here. As well, I've heard, don't know if it's true, but I've heard that even after the pumpkin has been cut from the vine, it still gets some of the nutrients from the stem. And if you cut that away, you're now separating some of its nutrients. Don't know if it's true. If you guys know if it's true, drop me a line. Now you may think that we're going to use that little tool that we made. No. That's actually for cutting our details. So what I'm going to use is a drywall saw, and I've already started this, but what I'm going to do is we're going to cut here just along our line. You want to make sure that you're cutting it at an angle, because if you're not cutting at an angle, your piece is just going to fall inside your pumpkin. Now the drywall saw makes really short work of this as it's so aggressive. So just get in there and cut out your access hole. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to use to scoop this out is a large metal serving spoon. I think first what we're going to have to do is cut around our opening just to give us some better access. Make sure that you leave a lip there to put your lid back on. So to get the majority of it out, I know I said to scoop it, but that's when we're thinning the walls. To get the majority of it out, there's no substitute for just getting in there, getting dirty, and pulling it out with your hands. All right, so you want to carve these things now. But before you can do that, we need to thin the walls. Now you don't want to go too crazy and make it too thin, but you need to make it so that the light will shine through. I tell you, this is a great thing to get kids involved with for your Halloween traditions. I mean, honestly, they're not going to hurt themselves with a spoon, and what kid doesn't love to get messy? Me included. Well, I'm putting my light in here. You can see that it shines through. It illuminates all the way around. I think it might need to be a little thinner right here. You can see that's not as bright. But what I'm going to do is continue to do it, scraping the insides until I get it the way that I want. I'm just using one of these flat LED lamps to light it up, and I've got this socket that you can get from your local big box store for, I think they're about $4. So this is what's going to light it up eventually on the inside, but I need to do more scraping. So let me get that done, and then we're going to get into transferring the pattern onto our pumpkin. Well, there are many different ways to transfer your pattern or your drawing onto your pumpkin. For me, I just like to draw it on with magic marker. Now, I found this drawing or this pumpkin design on the internet, and I just printed it out, and actually it was quite a small little drawing. So how did I get it from the size that I had it, which was about yay big, onto the pumpkin? Well, for that, I have one of these, and what this is a projector, and whatever you place underneath it, it projects it and enlarges it onto whatever you're working on, in this case, my pumpkin. Now it's time to cut things out, and I want to try something different, and I've never tried this method of cutting a pumpkin before, but we're going to give it a whirl. It could be really cool, or it could be a complete nightmare. So let's head over to the bench and see how we're going to do this. Now, believe it or not, what I want to do to carve this pumpkin is I want to use my power carver. And what I have installed in here is a rotary cutter bit. And I'll show you the ones I'm using here. These are branded RotoZip, but I know they're made by DeWalt and other manufacturers. But I'm just going to try this. I've never tried this before, and I'm kind of hoping it's going to work. Now, there's going to be several methods of carving here, with the main one being actual cutouts. But the only thing I'm going to cut out will be the smile, or the face, or sorry, the mouth, the two eyes, and the two nostrils. The rest we're going to do something a little different. So let's try this and see how it goes. I guess we'll start with one of the eyes and hope that everything goes okay. Okay, well, that's one line cut. Truth be told, I was kind of hoping that would go a little faster than what it is. I guess the meat of the pumpkin really slow it down. But I'm going to continue and see how we make out. So let's finish cutting this eye. Well, for those of you who were wondering at the beginning of the show why I'm wearing my old apron, it's because pumpkin puree is splattering everywhere. It's one heck of a clean cut, though. My gosh, that's spectacular as far as the clean cut goes. So I'm going to continue with this, but really, what a messy process. That's spectacular. Okay, so I'm going to cut out the other eye, and then we'll move on to the mouth. Do we really need another video of me splattering pumpkin puree all over the shop? Probably not. So let me cut this eye and then I'll come back to it. Okay, so with his eyes done, I'm going to do the same thing for his nostrils here and as well his mouth. I'll bore you to tears if I do this whole thing on film, So I'm just going to cut those, and then when I get those finished, I'm going to come back and see you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to these areas right here in the sections around the eye, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that. Okay, so I've got the mouth carved out, but we've got one heck of a lot of pumpkin puree stuck in the cutout that I've done here. So I'm gonna have to clean all of this out. Now at this point, once I get all of that cleaned out and I'm happy with the way it looks, that's where our little tool that we made comes in. And we can get in here and trim out some of the teeth and sharpen them up. The tool with the scroll saw blade is really not strong enough to be cutting the actual shape of the pumpkin. If you had a thicker blade, you could probably do it, but honestly, it's more for cutting little tiny details and sharpening up what you've just done with our puree power carver. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these other sections of our pumpkin. The next lines that I've got on here, I don't want to cut right through. So I've got an old carving chisel here. It's a V chisel. And I'm just going to take away the top layer of our pumpkin. In other words, that thick skin. And what that will hopefully do is allow the light to shine through those areas. So I'm going to very carefully now, at each one of these lines, trim them up so that we have the effect that we're looking for. And I don't know if it's going to show, but let me put a light up in there and you'll see hopefully what I'm talking about. There, can you see how those pieces show, or the where I just carved the grooves show up there? They kind of glow a little bit. Depending on how deep you carve them, they'll glow more or less. So I'm going to continue and carry on cutting all of these with the chisel, and I may deepen them with a knife. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. So after carving all of these larger ones here with the chisel, I've gone around with an X-Acto knife here. It's actually a carving tool that has replaceable blades in it, but it's spectacular for this sort of thing. And all I'm doing is being very careful now, and I've cut them all just a little deeper with the knife. The reason being I want them deeper, not wider, and the chisel that I had is just too wide. So I'm going to be using the knife as well to cut these accent parts here around the teeth. And you just want to be very, very careful here that you're not putting too much pressure on the knife and causing it to slip out and gouge into your hands. You just need light pressure. If the blade is sharp, it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm just going to go around with this knife and fine tune each of our accent pieces here. There we go, just like that. What this ends up doing, of course, is giving the pumpkin more accent pieces, but as well, these will shine a little less than these bright holes, so you're also giving it some kind of contrast. Either way, guys, let's get all of these teeth with their accents cut, and we'll clean it all up and go from there. Well, there are those that might call this done, but not me. Because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's the marker remnants on the pumpkin. I think it looks terrible. So a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a piece of paper towel or a cloth will easily take care of all of those marker remnants that are left. And you can clean it up, and then we just have to light it up and make sure that we're happy with our results. I think that's looking pretty cool. Here we go. So now it's time to close your pumpkin up. And I will say that by putting this hole on the back here, it does create a little bit of a problem in that sometimes the back doesn't want to sit in there nice and pretty. Guys, there is absolutely no shame whatsoever when it comes to pumpkin carving. And I've done it many times in using some nails to hold it in place. These are just 1.25 inch larger head nails, and we can just place a couple of them there just to hold it in place while we're using it, and that's all there is to it. Bob's your uncle, she's done. So I think I might call this one finished. So there you go, guys. What a load of fun. And there you have it. Carving a pumpkin. Guys, this is one of those things that I have done since a child. And I have to say, though, that this is the first time that I've ever done it using a power carver and a roto cutter bit. A little crazy in that regard, but it did work and it did get some good results. I actually found it gave better results if you took it in stages. You cut it a little way through just to mark your lines and get your groove to run that bit in, and then went deeper on the second pass and then right through on the third. Will I do it like this again? Sure I will. Sure I will. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that, and although I did have to extensively clean my power carver, you know, it's all part of using a tool. And I know that people might say the proper tool for the proper job, but honestly, I think this was probably a little safer for me with the design than using a knife. The little tool that we made out of dowel and a scroll saw blade, that does work rather well, but it works for doing detail cuts. It doesn't really work that well for cutting the full design of the pumpkin. The problem is once you get into that sawing motion, you allow that blade to come too far out of the pumpkin, and then when you go to push it in, it can jam and bend up, almost making it useless after that. Now you probably could use a larger blade, and in fact, if you have one, an old keyhole saw or even an old hacksaw blade, a coarse tooth hacksaw blade would work rather well also. For me, that drywall saw works wonders, and it's really great to do the rough cutting, but I had a blast with that rotary, or with the power carver, and I think it did a really awesome job. Well, minus all the pumpkin puree all over my apron, and that is why I have my old one on. I guess it's going in the wash after this because it's pretty much coated. I'm going to have to wash the bench down as well. It did make quite a mess, but it was one heck of a mess. That was one heck of a lot of fun to do, and I'm sure the kids are going to love this pumpkin on Halloween night. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this Halloween series so far. It's been a lot of fun. Some different stuff, some different methods, some weird things that you may not have thought of. But you know what? When it comes to carving pumpkins, there is no rules. And most importantly, I'd say the one rule, if there ever was one when it comes to carving pumpkins for Halloween, I would say the one rule would be, please get your children involved in this. Let them draw the design. Let them cut it, or help with mommy or daddy helping them to cut it. Whatever you do, get them involved in this, because I'm telling you, when you light this pumpkin up and see the looks on their little faces because they made this, they're so proud, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what Halloween is all about, I'm sure. If you haven't already, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. Something very different here on Tuesday for us, but oh my gosh, what a load of fun. Anyone who has watched my show for any length of time knows how much my wife and I love Halloween, and this is all part of it, and I'm glad I could bring it here and share it with you today. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've enjoyed the pumpkin. I hope you're going to try this for yourself, and more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.